probability that someday I do meet somebody like you and not in this context?
Well, if you marry, there's about a 56% chance that your marriage will end in divorce. Now, that doesn't take into consideration how many people may consult with a divorce lawyer because they're having difficulty in their marriage, but they choose subsequent to meeting me not to divorce for some particular reason, whether that's they don't want to part with half of their funds, or they've just decided it's easier to stay miserable and with a person, or they're staying together for the kids, but they want to know what their rights were. So if you marry, the chances of meeting someone like me are more likely than not, if we look at it that way, because it's more than 50%. So it's a high number.
That's scary.
But if we define failure as all of the other things you've described there, where we kind of stay together but we're miserable, or we stay together for some other reason, what percentage of marriages on that basis do you think actually fail?
I mean, if we consider failure staying together miserable for the children, or staying together for financial, economic reasons, and then we add that to the 56% that end in divorce, then, I mean, it would be very hard to track that, but I think it's generous to think it's another 20% probably. But I mean, think about what that adds up to. That means that you've got something that fails 75% of the time. That's a negligent activity. That is more likely than not to cause significant harm in your life. So I don't say that to sound like the Grim Reaper when it comes to marriage. I actually really think marriage is a lovely thing, and I get misty-eyed at weddings like anybody, and not just for future business purposes. I think the statistic that's even more interesting to me than how many marriages end in divorce or how many people stay together miserable is that 86% of people who divorce remarry within 5 years. So think about that. Now you've done this thing, it's failed, you've gone through this difficult process of having to undo it, and now within 5 years, 86% of people remarry. I mean, so that tells you how important this is to us as humans, how drawn to this idea, this technology of marriage we are. And that to me is fascinating, because I've often said, like, I'm not sure what problem is marriage designed to solve?
What is scary to me is the fact that some people even get married and divorced 3 times. Have you guys ever heard of those people? They get married the first time, they get divorced. They get married the second time, divorced. Third time, divorced. And they're still hoping and looking for that special person, their soulmate they want to stay with forever and ever and ever again. Because to me, what marriage is, and relationships in general, is the fact that you're hoping the way somebody feels about you today is how they're going to feel about you tomorrow, in a year, 5 years, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, no matter what changes in your life, whether you still have money, whether you're broke, whether you're sick, you're hoping another human being is going to feel the same way about you. And the thing is, the chances of that human being feeling the same way is like 0%.
See, the fact that it takes this long to think. If I said to you, what purpose does this technology, this mug, what does it serve? Well, that's easy, right? It's hard to drink out of your hands, and someone would have to keep coming up and pouring things in our hands. Okay, well, that's pretty straightforward. What problem does this solve? Well, that's easy, right? We want to get, the ring stains around. We get yelled at by our significant other for not using a coaster. So these are easy things. But marriage, something so ubiquitous that it's assumed. If you're dating someone for a few years and you say, guess what? We're getting married. Everyone goes, of course, phenomenal, congratulations, that's great. Of course you're going to do that. You make an honest woman of her, of course. Whereas if you say, we've been together for 3-4 years, we decided we're not going to get married, people go, oof, what's wrong with this guy? He's got intimacy issues. He's not getting married. What's the problem that you don't want to get married? Whereas rationally, the response should be, oh yeah, we're getting married. What? Are you kidding me? Why are you doing that? It's like someone saying, I'm going to go skydiving. It's like, wait, are you crazy? That's a dangerous thing to do. And it's not, listen, skydiving, it's not like 75%, 76% of people die who are skydiving. So the truth is, like, it makes very little sense to me that marriage is assumed to be a thing you will do, when in fact we as a species are so unbelievably bad at it.
That sort of 86% that then get remarried after divorce, have they learned from their mistakes? Are they better
This
at marriage?
time it's different. This time it's different. It's this time I'm really in love. That other time when I thought I was in love, that wasn't it. This time it's different. It really, it's a blind spot, you know. And again, where does it come from? You'd have to ask people smarter than me. You know, it could be neuroscience. It could be the realm of a real deep social psychology. It could just be a cognitive bias. I have no idea. It could be a delusion brought on by inadequate lighting. You know,
I think it's because people fear to be alone. I don't know if it's because we're humans, we are social creatures, but when it comes to marriage, but I also think because the marriage culture or the marriage phenomenon has been pushed onto us for so many decades, for so many centuries, that it's part of us. It's only now that people are starting to refuse to get married, both men and women, for different reasons. Women see it as controlling, men see it as, I don't want to lose my assets, right? But the fact that we want to be together, because even people who don't want to get married, they still want relationships. I think the fear of being alone, the fear of not being accepted by another human being, and also being judged by other people that, how come you're single, nobody wants you? I think that mindset is why people still get stuck to marriage.
But whatever it is, we go, oh yeah, but this one's different. This one, I did a prenup last week for a guy who went through one of the ugliest divorces I've ever seen. And that's not hyperbole. Like, I've been doing this for 25 years just to say, so for me to say the ugliest divorce I've ever seen that's amazing. That's a really big deal. That's like a Michelin chef saying this was the best meal I've ever had. So this guy had a horrific divorce that lasted 4 or 5 years. He's remarrying a woman 30 years younger than him who he met 4 months ago. And when I said to him, as artfully and tactfully as I could, you know, you've only known this person for a short time. And, you know, have you thought about maybe just, you know, being a little cautious in terms of, you've seen how difficult a divorce can be. You know, do you think maybe it might be? He goes, oh no, this is not, I've never felt anything like this. I've never been this in love. I've never been so connected with someone. We just get each other. And, you know, it would be very indelicate and rude for me to say, like, snap out of it, man. You got to get your, like, really, you know, bring your logical brain to this equation. Do not bring the part of you that's just filled with romance and has Christmas in your eyes. Like, really, you got to look at this honestly.
Yeah, that's true. Men are in love, women are in business. Shout out to CGA. Men are in love, women are in business. For some reason, a man will be in 1,000 relationships, but every time he falls in love, he believes that's the one God sent him. That's his soulmate. But women learn very quick that, you know what, men are here just to pay my bills and we have a good time. And if he moves on, if I leave him, I find a new one. But for some reason, men are always in deep love. And, you know, they found their soulmate, the queen of their life. They forget what all the other exes put them through, and they're hoping that this is special. That's why, as a man, if your homeboy is in love and trying to get married, the last thing you can do is try to talk him out of it, because he will literally hate you for it. Even if later on, you know, everything you told him comes true, she divorces him, she takes off his assets, takes his kids, he won't even remember. He won't remember the fact that you warned him. He'll just be, oh, I thought she was different. Oh my God, I didn't know. But it's like, bro, I told you, you were just being dumb and being emotional. You know, the Disney fantasy.
Do you see a lot of gold diggers? Do you see a lot of gold digger sort of patterns? I.e., you see someone that's incredibly wealthy, you see someone that's, I don't know, 40 years younger than them.
Yeah, I see a lot of that. I mean, I'm hesitant to say gold diggers because I think that has a pejorative like built into it. That somehow, I think that people bring different things to the table in relationships. I think love is an economy, and I'm not saying that in a way that devalues love. I think that love is a verb. I think that love is an emotion, and I think that love is an economy. You know, there is a giving and taking of value.
Yep.
And that can be incredibly symbiotic. That can be incredibly healthy and wonderful. That I am way too serious, and the person who I'm with is going to bring lightness and levity to the relationship, and I'm going to help them be a little more serious, and they're going to help me lighten up. And I'm hard charging and hard working, and everything's like 10 moves ahead, and my partner's going to like help me calm down and help me, not be so hard charging, and be a little softer, be a little kinder, and rest my head and give me a sort of warm place to do that. Like, that's beautiful. We're each bringing something different. So if I'm a powerful, hardworking, financially successful, financially secure man, and I meet a young, beautiful woman who has energy and excitement and who has tremendous gifts, but doesn't have the resources to be able to do much with that. Like, she's a talented artist, but, she's busy working, a thankless, awful job, like slinging cappuccinos, and she's not able to, in this prime of her life, focus on this thing she's so talented at. And I can say to her, hey, listen, why don't you focus on that? And I have resources, an abundance of them, and I'm happy to share them with you and feel like I'm part of your success. And you, in turn, are part of my success because you give me this wonderful respite from the chaos of my work. And like, I don't think that that's a dishonest economy. I don't think that, so like, to say a gold digger sort of implies like, oh, she's in it for the money. And it's like, okay, well, I'm in it for the beauty. So does that mean I'm a horrible, shallow person, or is beauty beautiful? Is beauty something you want to be around? And if we're honest about the interaction, how is that predatory? How is that unfair to either of us? If we're honest about it, like, what's harder for me to deal with is when I have a client who is, 150 pounds overweight, 5'7", and there is just nothing about him that aesthetically or even personality-wise, a woman would go, oh, that's my guy. But he's a billionaire, and he's got a young, gorgeous woman who's allegedly madly in love with him. And he really believes that it's his personality and has nothing to do with the fact that he's a billionaire, or that is a very small consideration. That feels to me like the worst kind of delusion, whereas you could very honestly say, like, yeah, we each bring different things to the table. We each bring different things to each other's lives. And then
facts. As a man, the first thing you should do when it comes to relationships and women and dating is to know that the only woman who will come close to loving you for who you are is your mama, not even your sisters. If you think I'm lying, if your sisters keep asking you for money, let's say you're the bigger brother and your sisters are always asking you for money or they need some help, and you say no the first time, 2 times, the 3rd time, I'm telling you, they're not going to be your sisters anymore. The only person who's closest to loving you for who you are is your mama. Even her. If you get a bunch of money and you don't give her any, I'm telling you, she's not going to like you the way she used to like you when you were a kid. So as men, you have to learn, man, no woman is going to like you for you. She's going to like you because, most importantly, you get something of value you bring to her life. That could be dick. That could be money. That could be, I don't care if you're just good looking, she likes to show you off. Whatever it is, no woman is even going to love you because, oh my God, you're such a nice person. Never, ever. There are plenty of nice men, but for some reason they're single. Tell me why. Riddle me that.
Yeah, so it is a quote unquote gold digger, but it's also a man who wants to buy the company of someone who might not otherwise be interested in him if he wasn't so successful. So I think there's a give and a take in that relationship.
I think that's very fair. Have you seen examples of the latter example where you described that billionaire where there's not many redeeming qualities, where they're heading towards marriage, they don't yet have a prenup. You're maybe advising them that they should get a prenup, and they're not interested because they're so deluded by the belief that the person is interested in their wonderful personality or...
Yeah. So the prenup conversation is a really interesting one because I do a lot of prenups. Sure. A prenuptial agreement is a contract between 2 people that defines the rule set essentially for their marriage. So marriage, when we talk about marriage, people tend to just sort of use the word marriage, and they're actually talking about a number of different things. Like in some contexts, marriage is a spiritual commitment, right? It's a religious commitment. It's tied to, in Catholicism, it's a sacrament. In Judaism, it's a covenant with God. In Islam, it has its own status. So marriage exists as a religious concept. Socially, we have a definition of marriage, right? Like I am married to this person. We have married our destinies to each other. We have agreed that we are each other's person. And then marriage has a specific legal definition. And my job as a divorce lawyer is to take that piece apart for someone, or to create protections for people who are contemplating entering into that legal status. So like you've been to weddings, right? I'm sure you've never at the end of the wedding said, great guys, I had a wonderful time. The cake was delicious. I need to see the paperwork. Can I see the license now? I just want to make sure everything was done properly and that there were witnesses. You've never said that. You've never said to your parents, can I see your marriage license? I'd like to make sure everything's in order here. That's not how it works. We don't do that. So you could go have a wedding and tell people that you're married and never actually legally marry. You could just tell people that you're married. You don't check people's paperwork. Like you can just wear a ring if you want to. And similarly, if you don't wear a ring, it doesn't mean you're not legally married. Like you could be legally married and still take your ring off and you're still legally married. If it was just as easy as taking the ring off, I'd be out of a job.
But he needs to talk about the common law situation. Because some people, you'd like to do that in some states, just because you don't marry that woman and you guys live in the same house for so many years and people see you as a couple, the common law marriage is going to get you. And this is for the guys who fear that if they get married, the woman will take half. If you're living with that woman under the same roof, you guys got kids for so many years. For some states, could be 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Common law could count you guys as married. So you have to check the common laws in your state if you're trying to avoid marriage, but you live with this woman. Because if she decides to leave, she could still take half, even if you guys didn't get legally married on paper.
Marriage is a legal status. That's one of the meanings of marriage. And a prenuptial agreement, the way I would describe it, is two people deciding that they, having picked each other out of 8 billion people to choose from in the world, are in a better position to make the rules that will govern the economics of their relationship than the legislature would be, than politicians would be. And anyone who's ever been to the Department of Motor Vehicles or who's ever been to, any government agency, very rarely would you interact with a government agency and go, we should definitely put these people in charge of our family life. Like they're going to do a great job. They're really crushing it, Like that's not something yet most people who are married have almost no idea what legal rights and obligations were conferred on them by getting married. They just have no idea. It's the most legally significant thing they're going to do in their life other than die. And they have no idea what their rights and obligations are. And those rights and obligations can change. So like politics and the legislature and the way that rules that govern the spousal support rights, child support rights, the division of property, those are subject to change by government change. So for example, in the United States, alimony, spousal support, maintenance, whatever we want to call it, which is a payment a person makes to their spouse when there's been an economic disparity in the marriage and now they're getting divorced. That used to be tax deductible. It used to have no formula. It was at the discretion of a judge. Then in 2016, Trump came into office and he said, yeah, I'm not letting it be tax deductible anymore. So completely changed. Now, you're already married at this point. And now the rules about what governs your marriage have changed. So there aren't a lot of contracts in the world that people could enter into that the terms could wildly change due to circumstances beyond your control, and you're still in that same contract. So prenuptial agreements are designed for two people who at that moment have an abundance of affection for each other. If they didn't, then there's no reason that they should be getting married, that they make up a rule set that's going to govern their relationship.
And that,
yeah, but most women don't like prenups because they're going to say, oh, you think I just want you for your money? You think I want to, are you calling me a gold digger? But it's like men have seen examples of different women who claim they were in love with a man and then divorced him, and then they want 50%. Have you guys seen that meme on Instagram or social media in general, that women want men who are 100% providers, right? But when it comes to divorce, they want to go 50-50. So women don't want a man who to go to in a 50, they don't want to be in a 50-50 relationship. In other words, they don't want to be paying 50% of the bills. But when a divorce happens, then they want to take 50% of the of the asset. It's like, I thought you don't want to do 50-50. So go the way you came and I go the way I come.
Typically, as we see it in movies and such, and we hear about it in culture, is really deciding who gets what when they break up, right?
Correct. Now, it's hard to say in advance who gets what when we break up sometime in the future, because we don't know what we're going to have in 10 years, in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? You create structures. Like you create, I refer to the simplest prenup as a yours, mine, and ours, which is if it's in my name, whether it's an asset or a liability, it's mine, free from any claim by you, free from any obligation to you. If it's in your name, it's yours, free from any claim by me, any obligation to me. Ours, if it's in our joint names, then we're equally responsible for it if it's an obligation, or we equally are entitled to half the value of it if it's an asset. That to me, just creating those three buckets. Now here's the problem. You create those three buckets, you both sign off on it, and you get married. You can't just set it and forget it now. You actually have to have conversations with this person that you're married to, which theoretically you should be able to do, right? Like if you've decided this is going to be my primary relationship, this is the person I'm going to tie my destiny to, you should be able to talk about, hey, I just got this big bonus at work. I'm going to put this much in my sole account, and I'm going to put this much in the joint account. And then you should be able to say, if you're the other person, well, why are you putting so much of it in your personal account? Like, things weird with us or something?
Most women would get offended. If a man gets $1 million and is like, hey, listen, I'm going to put $800,000 in my personal account and I'm going to put $200,000 in our joint, most women are going to say something about it.
Or is there, have some conversation again about why are we marrying? It's that economy concept, which is, look, what do I owe you if I marry you?
Nothing.
I'd like to know that in advance because people say to me all the time, well, I married this person and when we got married, he had nothing. He had nothing. And he built his business while he was married to me. And I was very, there for him while he was building it. So therefore, I believe I'm entitled to half the value of that business. Now,
women.
That's a logical argument. I don't know that I agree with it, but it's logical.
I don't agree either.
Keep going with that logic, right? So if that was true, and I built this business and my wife, who was married to me while I was building that business, she helped make that. Okay, well, her mother and father helped make who she is. So I owe them something, right? Because if they hadn't done what they did, I wouldn't have her. And if I didn't have her, I wouldn't have my business. So how much do I owe them? And now that I think about it, her grandmother definitely influenced who her mother was, which influenced who she was, which influenced what she did for me. So can you let me know in advance how far down the chain do I owe people and how much do I owe them? They can't all get half. So did they get half of the half of the half? Or do I and if this is the logic that we're going to follow, then I would like to know in advance what that is, because there are no other transactions where if you went in to purchase a car and you said, how much is this car? And they said, money. And you said, well, how much? It's a good amount. Okay, again, we just keep talking in abstractions. I'd like to know, what does this add up to? How much is it? And
actually, it's a real thing that these days, if a man talks about a prenup, actually, women are saying a man who talks about a prenup before they get married is a red flag. I'm not kidding you guys. Women don't like men who talk about prenups because they don't want men who are smart. They don't want men who know the repercussions of divorce. They would rather get a man who has money but doesn't know anything that happens when a divorce happens. Because women usually do the math. When a woman meets you, she knows, she sizes you up right away. She's like, okay, he makes this much money. If I divorced him, this is how much he would pay me. If he was to, give me child support. This is how much he makes. They know from the beginning, that from the first time they meet you, especially once they find out what job you have and how much money you make, they do the math in their heads. Okay, if I divorce him, or if there's child support, or okay, this is how much he can give me for rent, this is how much he can give me. So they know, they do the math, but they would rather you as a man not put it in your mind what would happen if they divorced you. They would rather you have no idea. They would rather you're just in love and, you know, Disney fantasy, you find the love of your life, and then boom, divorce. You find out you got to lose half.
Even if you can't make it a dollar number, it's X percent of last year's earnings, or like give me a formula, something to tie it to, and at least have that conversation, because then you can decide, am I going to sign up for this thing or not?
You must meet a lot of people who are in a relationship where one of the people doesn't want to have a prenup.
Yes.
Because when I think about having a prenup, I'm with a woman at the moment. We've been together for 5 years. Frankly, if I said to her, I want to get a prenup, she would be all for it. That's the type of person she is. She would be all for it. Doesn't care. She'd be all for it.
Excellent. You've done well.
But I can imagine in other relationships, I'd be nervous to even say the words, because immediately you're thinking about how you're getting out before you get in.
Yeah, because they get offended.
Well, and you know, there's a lot to that. There's a lot to unpack there. So the first thing I would say is all marriages end. They end in death or they end in divorce, but they all end, right? And so if you said, I'm going to get life insurance, it would be foolish for someone who's with you to say, wait, are you planning on dying soon? Like, but in the event that I do, I'd like to make sure that things are taken care of in a certain way. And in the event that I do, there's going to be enough things to be upset and sad about for the people around me. So I'd like them to have one less thing, and I also know that there's a possibility. I hope I won't, but there's a possibility that I'm going to die in an hour. So I'd really hope it doesn't happen, but I can't say it's definitely not going to happen. So divorce, when we look at statistics like that, it's okay to say, hey, look, you know what? I hope this never happens. But if it did, what do we owe each other? What would you need? Like, it's not just a conversation about what do I want to keep? What am I entitled to keep? It's also, well, what would you need?
Have you seen it break down a marriage because someone mentioned a prenup? Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen marriages that were scheduled to happen not happen because the prenup discussion happened. But more often than not, I've seen the threat of not marrying someone because they want you to sign a prenup cause a person to fold in their request for a prenup, which to me is a really bad start for a marriage. So I've had a lot of clients who come in, say, look, I want to have a prenup. I have a lot of confidence in this marriage. I really love this person, but I would like to, have a prenup in place. And I draft a prenup for them, and it has reasonable terms. And they give it to their fiance, and their fiance says, yeah, I'm not signing that. It's not happening.
And I can guarantee you those were the women. I can guarantee you it was the women who said, you know what? I don't want to sign the prenup. So which lets you know that in the beginning, they were about the money and they were hoping the guy doesn't know about prenups. Most women, in my opinion, would rather find a man who doesn't know nothing about prenups and just get married just for the sake of it, rather than a man who knows about prenups. Even if they love the guy, they would leave him if he brings up the conversation about prenups. And what happens is that men also get scared to ask, like this guy said, like, because he makes lots of money, but he's like, I would be scared to bring up the prenup conversation with some women. And some guys get married like that because they don't want to lose the woman. So rather than bring up the conversation of prenup, they're like, I don't want to lose her. If I bring up the conversation about prenup, she's going to refuse to marry me. So most men don't do it. And then they regret 10 years later. But anyway, that's it for today, guys. I want to take an opportunity and thank everybody who's in the chat, everybody who has been with me from the beginning. I'll be back tomorrow for another live stream, so don't go nowhere. All right. But until then, like the video as you head out. Don't forget, I'll be back here tomorrow with other videos to go through with you guys. So until then, it's been a pleasure. Peace.